It was a Tuesday. I was 26, a junior product designer at a company called ArcLight Labs. Sexy branding, VC-backed, full of dudes named Brett, who all seemed to play guitar and say "my guy" instead of hello. I wasn't cool. I didn't surf. I didn't own AirPods. I brought lunch from home in a Tupperware that still smelled faintly of spaghetti. But I had an idea. A product that wasn't just another copycat app. Something simple but powerful. A real-time dashboard that pulled data across fragmented platforms and made it make sense for startups with no ops team. One login, one interface, one brain to run the noise. I called it Nerve. Not because I thought I was a genius, but because I knew what it felt like to be one nerve away from quitting. I spent nights working on it, on my own time. Never stole code, never used company servers. Just me, my busted laptop, and YouTube tutorials at 2 a.m. with coffee that tasted like burnt cardboard and fear. I wasn't ready to launch it, but I was ready to share it. So I asked for 10 minutes at the Friday pitch session, an open floor tradition ArcLight held where anyone could present a feature idea or product prototype, a thing they said they encouraged. Turns out that was just for optics. I walked into that meeting with a USB stick demo and an idea that had already eaten 6 months of my life. I wasn't nervous. I was hopeful. Big mistake. I finished the pitch. Clean, direct, minimal slides, no fluff, silence. Then Brett, too, can't remember which one anymore, let out this low, sarcastic laugh. The kind of laugh that doesn't need an audience, but gets one anyway. Soon the others joined in, not hysterically, just enough to sting. One of them actually clapped. Slow, 3 beats. Then, "You built a dashboard," another chimed in. So, like Notion plus Google Sheets had a baby with anxiety. That got a laugh. Even the CTO smiled. The kind of corporate smile you use when you're being paid not to show cruelty, but still want to enjoy it. Then came the worst part. "That's cute, Ethan," someone said. I think it was Danielle. She always wore heels that clicked like punctuation, but we're not really in the business of basic utility tools. I nodded, swallowed the silence. They moved on. The next person pitched a redesign for the dark mode toggle. It got applause. I walked out of that room and straight to the stairwell where I sat alone for 20 minutes, pretending to answer Slack messages, while my hands shook so hard, I dropped my phone twice. You want to know what real betrayal feels like? It's not someone stealing your idea. It's watching people dismiss your vision like it's a kid's drawing pinned to a grown-up fridge. But I didn't quit. I just stopped talking. I went back to my desk, opened a blank document, wrote one sentence. They won't laugh when they can't afford to. That became the mantra. For the next 2 years, I left ArcLight quietly. 6 months later, gave 2 weeks' notice, smiled in my exit interview, wrote exploring new opportunities on LinkedIn like everyone else. Not a single one of them asked me what I was doing next. And I didn't tell them because I wasn't doing next. I was doing something they said couldn't be done. They had the audience. I had the blueprint. I left ArcLight on a Friday just after lunch. No farewell party, no signed card. Just a few awkward fist bumps and a stale cookie from the snack table. I think someone yelled, "Good luck, bro," as I walked to the elevator. But it might have been for someone else. When the doors closed, I exhaled for the first time in months. I wasn't angry, not yet. Just unfinished. I moved into a studio apartment so small, the fridge doubled as my nightstand. The Wi-Fi barely reached the bathroom. The neighbors had a toddler with a grudge against sleep. It was perfect, because no one came to see me there. No one checked in, no one watched. And that's exactly what I needed. I took the name Nerve and gave it a skeleton. Stripped it down to function, no animations, no branding, no distractions. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I just wanted to build something real, something that could sit behind a startup's chaos and breathe order into it. At first it was just me. Then I looped in Mira, an old college friend, who now worked in UX and still owed me for helping her pass statistics with a rigged study guide. I paid her in coffee and fake stock options. She believed in the idea before she believed in me. "You're going to need front-end support eventually," she said one night over takeout. I know, I told her, but not yet. Right now, it just has to work. We worked out of my apartment. The couch was the conference room. My desk was a folding table from Craigslist with one leg shorter than the others. Every time we pushed on it too hard, it wobbled like our future. But there was something electric about it. The version of Nerve we built was ugly. Barbones, gray and white UI, a font so generic it looked like I typed it in my sleep. But under the hood, clean, fast, modular. I wrote code like I was writing a secret language, one that only made sense to the underfunded and overlooked. While the tech bros from ArcLight were doing tequila shots at networking mixers, I was rewriting data sync protocols and eating instant noodles out of a coffee mug. My LinkedIn was dead. My Instagram was private. My social life was a Slack channel with 2 people in it. I told myself it was a phase, but part of me liked disappearing. Disappearing is underrated. You stop reacting. You start executing. Mira and I kept to a schedule. Sir, to 1 a.m. with breaks only for walks, food. And when my laptop overheated like it was gasping for help. On weekends, we ran local user tests, mostly with other broke friends running bootstrapped ideas. I watched them click, navigate, stumble, nod. One guy said, "Wait, this actually helps." I went home that night and didn't sleep. I just sat there staring at the screen, refreshing the analytics dashboard we hacked together, watching 3 users become 7, watching data trickle in like a whisper turning into a heartbeat. I didn't post about it, didn't tell old coworkers, didn't reach out to the people who laughed at me in that meeting room. Because this wasn't a comeback story. It was a build under your nose story. One night, Mira asked me, "Do you want them to know it's you?" I paused, then said eventually, "But only when they can't undo it." Nerve wasn't profitable, not yet, but it was moving, and I was done waiting for permission to take up space. We launched our private beta to 42 users, not investors, not friends, just founders, people who were drowning in platforms, spreadsheets, chaos. We gave them one login, one view, one brain for their madness. The feedback, brutal, but useful. They told us what sucked, what broke, what confused them, what they loved. And we listened. Every day was a loop. Code test, break, fix, repeat. I stopped shaving. Mira started talking to her houseplants. Our Slack thread became a stream of memes, bugs, breakthroughs, and messages like, "Holy, so this works now." Boof. We started getting emails. "Hey, I saw this tool in a Reddit thread. Is it open to the public yet?" My friend sent me a screenshot. "Can we talk? I would literally pay for this." Those were the words that hit hardest. I would pay for this. Not like, not follow, not pitch me, pay. That's when it shifted. We added a 9-month plan just to test it. Within a week, 18 people signed up. 18. That sounds small, insignificant. But I'll tell you this. The first time someone gives you money for something you built from scratch, it's not money anymore. It's proof. Proof that you were never crazy. Just early. Proof that maybe, just maybe, those people who laughed at you weren't visionaries. They were just loud. And for the first time in months, I let myself smile. Just a little, because I wasn't trying to beat them anymore. I was becoming someone they'd never see coming. There's a specific smell that clings to every startup apartment. It's a mix of overcooked coffee ozone from overworked chargers and sheer human panic. My place reeked of it. The kind of place where the air was 70% caffeine and 30% debugging rage. Where you could step on a USB stick, a granola bar, or a Post-it that said, "Fix before launch," and not know which one was more urgent. This was where Nerve lived. And when I say lived, I mean barely survived. We were running on fumes, not just emotionally. Technically, my code base looked like a battlefield. Functions patched over, functions. Logic that only made sense if you hadn't slept. Comments like, "Fix this or die," scribbled in all caps. Mira used to joke that if anyone else ever saw our GitHub repo, we'd be arrested for digital negligence. But under all the chaos, it worked. Nerve did the one thing everyone else pretended they could do. It simplified the chaos. We weren't chasing innovation. We were chasing clarity. Every other platform was busy gamifying productivity, slapping dopamine-colored graphs on your screen to make you feel efficient. We just wanted you to breathe, to see your business in one place. No noise, no fluff, just answers. And people started noticing. Word of mouth in the founder world spreads like wildfire, especially when it comes from people who usually hate everything. We got featured in a small newsletter run by an indie dev with a cult following. Overnight, our user base jumped from 40-something to 200 plus. I didn't even know how they found us. Probably one of those early testers with a big mouth and better friends. We didn't sleep that week. The dashboard crashed 3 times. A sync error duplicated data fields and made a fitness app client believe they had 9,000 active users. I thought we were done. Mira laughed for 2 minutes straight, then drank expired oat milk and threw up in the sink. We fixed it. By the end of the month, we were at 622 users. That number's burned into my memory. Not because it's impressive, but because it felt like too much and not enough at the same time. Too much for 2 people and a broken coffee machine. Not enough for the effort we were bleeding. We needed help. I didn't want to raise money. I wanted to earn it. But Mira kept insisting, if we don't expand soon, this thing's gonna collapse under its own weight. She was right. I sent out a few feelers, quietly. No pitch decks. Just private DMs to people I respected. The kind who wouldn't make me wear a hoodie and lie about disrupting legacy systems. Most ignored me. One replied. His name was Julian, a former founder-turned-angel who'd had his last startup acquired by a company that used more buzzwords than features. He asked for a 10-minute call. We talked for 90. He didn't ask for projections. Didn't need a deck. He just asked, "What's the worst thing you've done to keep this alive?" I said I coded through a kidney stone. He wired $20,000 the next morning. We brought on a contract dev named Ria. She didn't talk much, but her pull requests came with clean code, dark jokes, and once a meme of a raccoon typing at a keyboard with the caption, "Me fixing prod at 3 a.m. She fit in immediately. And then, things moved. We added new integrations, released the V2 UI, built a real billing system. Hell, I even bought a standing desk that didn't wobble. For the first time in 2 years, I stood at my window and didn't feel like the world was leaving me behind. I felt like I was finally catching up. But here's the kicker. I still hadn't told them. Not one of the people from Arc Light knew what I was building. Not Brett. Not Danielle. Not the guy who called my idea baby's first dashboard. It wasn't secrecy. It was strategy. Because when you want revenge, you don't show the sword. You keep it sheathed. You wait for them to run straight into it. I did get a small taste, though. One night, Mira messaged me a screenshot. Brett, posting on LinkedIn. We're exploring partnerships with some incredible new tools, helping founders level up OP. If you're building something cool, let's talk. She added, "You should reply." I replied, I already did, 2 years ago. We laughed, because the very people who laughed me out of the room were now looking for me. They just didn't know it yet. And when they did, I wasn't going to knock. I was going to buy the door. They don't talk about the kind of rejection that doesn't just say no, it says nice try. Worse than silence, worse than ghosting. It's when someone looks you in the eye, smiles politely, and still somehow makes you feel small for asking. That was most of my funding journey. After Julianne's $20K angel check, we were able to patch the system on board Ria full-time and buy actual chairs. But that money went fast. Too fast. Growth doesn't wait for bootstraps to tighten. Every new user wanted more integrations, more stability, faster sync. Every week we didn't scale was a week closer to collapse. So I put together a deck. Not a flashy one, just facts. User growth, churn rate, lifetime value. The math was there. We were small, but we were sticky. No one left once they got in. I built a list of 48 early-stage VCs and angels, carefully curated. People who said they backed first-time founders. People who bragged about investing in grit. People who literally tweeted things like, "We bet on underdogs. DM me if you're building something cool." DM it. I emailed. I followed instructions, short, compelling blurbs, warm intros. A personal note about how Nerve was designed for founders by one who'd been dismissed before. Of the 48, 37 didn't respond. 9 said some version of, "Not in our wheelhouse right now." And 1 said yes. His name was Brandon, a partner at a flashy micro fund in San Francisco with a logo that looked like a luxury vape brand. His assistant scheduled a call, then a second one, then a third. I was excited. Stupidly so. He asked good questions. Wanted access to the sandbox version of Nerve to poke around. Asked if we had projections. I sent everything. Product roadmap, competitor analysis, even a speculative integration timeline. He ended the last call with, "I like it, Ethan. I'll talk to the team." Then nothing. For 3 weeks. I followed up. No response. Then Mira sends me a link. "Hey, doesn't this look familiar?" I clicked. It was a blog post announcing a new portfolio company. Brandon's fund had just backed. A data ops startup for founders. Same target market. Same mission statement. Same UI structure. Same phrasing I'd used in our calls. They even called their dashboard Pulse. Not even subtle. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling my stomach drop into my knees. He didn't ghost me. He used me. He took my pitch deck, my roadmap, my words, and handed them to some smooth-faced Ivy League team with Patagonia vests and trust funds. And they ran with it. I wanted to punch my laptop. Instead, I poured coffee that tasted like betrayal and stared at our tiny graph of user growth like it could comfort me. Mira was fuming. "You want to go public? Call him out." I shook my head. "No." "Why not?" "Because this isn't where the story ends. This is where it starts." We doubled down, pushed a new UI in 2 weeks, scrubbed anything that resembled Pulse, launched our own update with way better onboarding, 2 new sync tools, and a customer success flow that actually worked. We didn't have VC money, but we had rage. And it's amazing how far rage can stretch when you stop trying to prove something and start taking back what's yours. By the end of the quarter, we passed 1,000 paying users. That's when things got interesting. One of our new users, a mid-level OPS manager from the very same firm that backed Pulse. They didn't know who I was, didn't know the backstory, just needed help getting their internal data to play nice. They emailed, "Hey, just wanted to say Nerve's been a lifesaver." We tried Pulse. Didn't work. "This does." I stared at that email for a full minute. Then I replied, "Glad we could help. Let us know if you need more." And that night, I updated our internal dashboard with a new tracker, number of Pulse customers who came to us. Month, it would grow. Slowly, steadily, like rot under a polished floorboard. See, they could take my pitch deck. They could steal the colors, the language, the aesthetic, but they couldn't fake the heart. They weren't desperate enough. Not yet. Because desperation teaches you things. How to make decisions faster. How to survive crashes. How to recognize the difference between a no and a not yet. And how to know deep in your gut that one day you're going to own the people who called you cute. My bank account had $132 in it, and my pride was overdrafting daily. Mira and I had pushed Nerve into 4 updates in 6 weeks. We were running faster than our cash flow could catch up. Hosting bills were creeping up. Customer support was eating hours. Ria was working miracles for practically minimum wage. We were growing, but dying at the same time. And I was running out of ways to hide it. I stopped ordering food. Ate whatever was in the questionable section of the fridge. Made up excuses not to grab drinks with anyone. Hell, I canceled Netflix. That's how you know it's serious. But what really killed me, I started doubting the whole thing. Not the product, not the users. Because what if I was the common denominator? One night, after a 19-hour coding marathon and a crash that corrupted our new billing system. Yes, again, I collapsed on the floor of the living room. Just laid there. Not dramatically, not even tired. Just done. And that's when Jonah walked in. My roommate. Jonah was the kind of guy who always had 3 browser tabs open. Crypto charts, fantasy football, and YouTube videos titled, "How to Fix Your Sleep with Ice Baths." We weren't close. More like financial roommates. We split, rent, nodded at each other in the kitchen, and sometimes argued about whose mug was moldier. He stepped over me, looked down, and said, "Did you die? Or is this just a founder thing?" I didn't even laugh. He walked into the kitchen. I heard the fridge open the clink of a beer bottle. And then his voice, "You gonna quit?" That got me up. I leaned against the couch. No, but it might quit me. He sat across from me. No jokes, just this weird quiet stare. Then he said, "If I gave you 10 grand, would it keep you alive for 2 more months?" I blinked. Thought he was joking. "You have 10 grand?" "Not really," he shrugged. "But I've got this ETH sitting in cold storage. Been waiting for a reason to cash out. You look like one." I just stared at him. Not because of the offer, but because it was so simple. No pitch, no term sheet, no 30-minute video call about mission alignment. Just, I believe you're onto something. And that hit harder than any investor email ever could. I told him no, of course. I couldn't take that. It wasn't fair. He raised a brow. You can't or you won't. I didn't answer. Next morning, I woke up to a PayPal notification. $10,000 received from Jonah M. Memo. Don't screw this up. That money saved us. We paid our AWS bills, got Mira a real monitor, gave Rhea a bonus so she wouldn't quit during bug week, bought actual food that didn't come in powder form. But more than that, it bought us time. Time to breathe. Time to patch the billing system without blind panic. Time to send a newsletter that didn't reek of desperation. Jonah didn't ask for updates. He didn't even log into Nervy. He just said, "Let me know when I should brag about being your first VC." That line stuck with me. First VC. Not only VC, just first. That same week, something crazy happened. We got a user referral from a tiny venture-backed startup in Berlin. I only noticed because the name rang a bell. It was one of ArcLight's innovation partners. They didn't know me, didn't know my story, just knew someone had posted a Nerve screenshot in their founder's Slack. The dominoes were starting to lean. For the first time since this whole mess started, I looked at our growth curve. Not the flat part, not the stress part, but the subtle rising edge. And I thought, we're going to make it. Not because of strategy, not because of some 3-year roadmap. Because one person saw me flat on the floor and decided to bet, instead of doubt. That kind of belief isn't scalable, but it's infectious. I used to think revenge meant proving them wrong. But that night, sitting across from Jonah with real dinner and no panic in my chest, I realized sometimes revenge is just surviving long enough to smile again. Nerve hit 2,000 active users that month. I didn't post about it, didn't screenshot the graph, just added a new tag in our Notion board. Jonah moment. Definition. When someone gives you what no one else will, time, belief, or 10 grand, and asks for nothing back. Everyone building something needs a Jonah moment. And sometimes, you don't realize how loud their laughs were until the silence is finally yours. You always remember your first real user. Not your friend. Not your mom pretending to test it. A real user. Someone who doesn't owe you a thing. Someone who clicked subscribe and put in their credit card like it wasn't a favor, it was an expectation. Her name was Priya, a founder from Austin, tiny team, scaling fast. She found us through a blog comment, signed up, and within 30 minutes had integrated 4 of her startup's tools into Nerve. Then she emailed, "Is there a way to pull weekly revenue across all channels into a single tile?" There wasn't, not yet. But I built it that night. I stayed up until 4:40. Eyes bloodshot, fingers stiff, whispering, "Please work like a prayer," as I pushed the update and hit refresh. It worked, she messaged back. "This saved me 90 minutes today. I'm telling my friends, that one sentence gave me more dopamine than caffeine ever did." And that's when it started. First it was Priya, then a guy named Luis who ran a sneaker resale site and wanted a way to track ad spend without crying into spreadsheets. Then Alex, a marketing ops freelancer, juggling 6 tools and no brain space. Within a week, we had 10 new signups. It felt like someone had turned the faucet from drip to flood. And that's when the panic started. See, people think the scary part of building a startup is no users. They're wrong. The scary part is when they show up. Because now, you're no longer building for hope. You're building for expectation. You're no longer begging people to try it. You're praying it doesn't break, and Nerve broke hard. 2 days after our mini-viral bump, our sync engine started acting up. Data fields overlapped. Tiles disappeared. In one case, a founder messaged us saying, "Nerve just told me my startup made 3,486 yesterday. Please tell me this is a joke." It wasn't. The sync logic had a timestamp error. It reversed transactions during certain time zone conversions. We scrambled. I hadn't slept more than 4 hours in 2 days. Mira was surviving on instant noodles and rage. Rhea sent us this message at 3 a.m. If anyone breathes too loud right now, I'm rewriting their schema in Latin. It was chaos, but we fixed it. By living in it. For 72 straight hours, we didn't leave the dashboard. No calls. No peer. Just code tests, bugs, patches, coffee code again. At one point, I hallucinated that the Slack notification sound was whispering my name. That's when Mira took my laptop away and made me drink a smoothie. When we finally deployed the hotfix and verified the data had been restored, we sat in silence, just stared at the screen. No cheers, no high fives. Just relief, a new kind of quiet, the kind you earn. We lost about 6% of new users that week, but the ones who stayed, they became evangelists because we didn't hide. We owned the mistake. We explained it, fixed it, and over-communicated every single update. One user tweeted, "Every SaaS breaks. The good ones show up when it does." Respect to Nerve for not ghosting us. It got 300 likes. That was our first real press, and it cost me 3 years off my life expectancy. But it proved something Mira always said. People don't fall in love with perfect. They fall in love with progress. We started a changelog newsletter called The Pulse. In it, we showed raw updates, warts and all. Screenshots of messy devlogs, user suggestions, even the occasional meme when things were too quiet. It made people feel like they were part of the build, and that changed everything. Our churn dropped. Our engagement spiked. Support tickets became beta ideas. People didn't just use Nerve. They believed in it because they saw it bleed and get back up. That crash was the best, worst thing that could have happened to us because it shook out the tourists and left us with believers. And when you're an underdog, building quietly waiting for your shot, there's nothing more powerful than knowing someone needs what you're building. Because then you stop asking, is it good enough? And you start asking, how can I make sure they never need anything else? And just like that, Nerve stopped being a tool. It became a habit, a quiet one, a powerful one. And I stopped checking Pulse's LinkedIn updates because they weren't even on the same track anymore. They were still playing startup. We were building a system. If you've never been called crazy for changing something that works, congratulations. You're probably not a founder. Nerve was working. 2,500 active users, 14 hängyatars MRR, low churn, consistent referrals. But it felt wrong. Like driving a car with the emergency brake halfway up. Something was dragging, heavy, quiet. But it was there, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. The problem was simple. We were being used, but not in the way we intended. Nerve had become a reporting tool. Founders were plugging it in, pulling clean data, and then bouncing it over to other tools to act on. They used Nerve to see, not to decide. And that wasn't the dream. I didn't build this thing to be an expensive mirror. I built it to run the room. We didn't want users just looking at their data. We wanted them acting on it fast, clear, confidently. So I sat down with Mira and said, what if we pivot? She blinked. Like, to what? We're finally stable. Exactly, I said. Which means we're 1 quarter away from sinking into comfort. She looked at me like I'd just asked her to move back into the ramen apartment. Then she said, okay, but we do it smart. We spent 2 weeks digging through user behavior, not just feedback behavior. Where they clicked, where they hovered, where they stopped. The patterns were obvious. Users didn't want dashboards. They wanted decisions. So we tore Nerve down, quietly, kept the core engine, scrapped the UI, rebuilt the experience around automation and recommendation. We called it Nerve OS, a control center not just for data, but for execution. Instead of, here's your numbers, it became, revenue's down 12% in this channel. Pause ads here for 72 hours. Inventory low on product X. Auto email supplier. Churn risk triggered. Want to send discount code to flagged users? Yes or no? 1 click. Think of it like a pilot's co-pilot. Still in control, but you're not flying blind. The first time we ran it on a test user, he literally said, wait, this thing makes suggestions. Like, it's reading my mind. We laughed. But I didn't laugh when I realized he wasn't wrong. And that scared me in the best way. We opened up the closed beta to 50 power users. Handpicked. No ads. No announcements. Just, hey, you've been here since the broken dashboards and panic. Want to see what's next? 43 said yes. 1 wrote, I've been waiting for this pivot since the day I signed up. That's when I knew. This wasn't just a better product. It was what Nerve was meant to be all along. Ria built a new logic layer to analyze user behavior and suggest actions based on past outcomes. Mira redesigned the flow with fewer dashboards and more decisions. I rebuilt the sync protocol to prioritize real-time updates over static data. It took 6 weeks. We didn't sleep much. We missed birthdays, anniversaries, emails from that one VC who might be circling back. But when we launched, it hit hard. Within 10 days, 38 of the 43 beta users switched over permanently. Support tickets dropped. Engagement tripled. Our daily active time per user jumped by 62%. And then, Pulse copied us. They released a new update 2 weeks later. Same concept. Worse execution. Even stole one of our button colors. I wasn't mad. Because you can't pivot when your foundation is fake. You can only imitate. And when users see imitation, they walk. We didn't even call it out. Just added a line to our changelog. We've noticed a few familiar faces chasing us. Cute. Jonah saw it and messaged, "Are you finally having fun yet?" I replied, "Almost." Because for the first time, we weren't reacting. We were leading, and when you're leading, you don't need to be the loudest, just the clearest. I used to think revenge meant rubbing their faces in it. But now, revenge was watching them scramble to catch up while we rewrote the rules. There's a certain kind of email subject line that stops your heart for a second. Mine was, potential partnership. Let's chat. It came from Brett Langley. Yeah, that Brett. The same guy who smirked when I pitched Nerve. The one who called it a cute little founder toy. The one who suggested I stick to the design stuff. He was now the head of product at ArcLight, and he wanted to talk. I didn't reply right away. I stared at the screen like it might glitch and turn into a prank. Then I forwarded it to Mira with one word. Thoughts. She sent back a gif of a raccoon rubbing its hands together. So yeah, we set the call. It was scheduled for 9 a.m. PST. I didn't sleep the night before. It wasn't nerves. It was calculation. Because I knew this was the beginning of the end. For them, the call opened with fake pleasantries. "Ethan, wow, it's been forever. Can't believe what you've built. We've actually been following Nerve for a while now." I smiled politely, said thanks. Let him talk. He talked a lot about how ArcLight was looking to modernize internal tooling, how they were so impressed with our growth, how there might be room for something bigger here. Then came the line, "We'd like to explore acquiring Nerve." My heart didn't skip. It settled. Because I'd been waiting for this exact moment since the day I walked out of that conference room with nothing but a broken laptop and a startup that lived in my head. He started pitching valuation models, big picture synergies, how I'd get a leadership role post-acquisition, how this could bring everything full circle. Then he said a number, $3, $2 million. I didn't flinch, because I already knew what I was going to say. I leaned forward, unmuted, and smiled like I was offering him a mint before the guillotine dropped. "Brett, I really appreciate the offer, but I have to say, it's nowhere near what Nerve is worth." Silence. He recovered quickly. "Well, of course, this is just a conversation starter. Happy to adjust the terms. What were you thinking?" I didn't answer the question. Instead, I asked one of my own, "Do you know why Nerve exists?" He blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, do you remember the pitch I gave in that meeting 3 years ago, the one you laughed at?" He laughed nervously. "You can't take everything so personally. It's just business." I paused. "Let that hang there." "Exactly," I said. "And now it's my business, not yours." Then I thanked him for his time and ended the call. Jonah walked into the living room seconds later holding a smoothie and blinking like he'd just woken up. "You good?" I grinned. "I just told the guy who mocked my dream that he couldn't afford it anymore." He blinked, then said, "Yeah, you're definitely having fun now." Later that day, Mira added a new card to our team Trello board. Victory lap, rejected acquisition, checklist, smile for 5 full minutes. Update pricing page out of pure pettiness. Never respond to LinkedIn DMs from Brett. Buy a candle that smells like revenge. That email from ArcLight wasn't the end of the story. It was the turn. Because when they made that offer, it validated everything. The idea, the grind, the mistakes, the pivot, and it meant one simple, powerful thing. We were now a threat, not a toy, not a beta, not a hopeful pitch. A company that scared them enough to try buying us before we made them irrelevant. So we did the only logical thing. Doubled down. New hires, new roadmap, new logo. Okay, fine. We didn't need a new logo, but it felt fun because now we weren't proving anything. We were planning domination, and Brett, he'd get to watch it all from the sidelines. Front row seat. No control. Just a man with a number in his head and the growing, sickening realization that he should have said yes back then. When I was cheap, there are two types of people at startup events. The ones chasing attention, and the ones people chase for attention. For years I was the former. Lingering by snack tables, faking confidence, hoping someone important would accidentally ask what I did. Now, I had a keynote slot. The Founders Summit was the kind of event that drew every VC operator and tech Twitter warlord with a verified checkmark and an opinion on bootstrapping. Mira called it the Hunger Games with kombucha, and Nerve had been invited to close day 2. A year ago, that would have given me imposter syndrome so bad I'd forget my own name. But this time, I packed 3 things: a clean pitch deck, a callback joke about oatmeal dashboards, and a nuclear warhead of a reveal. I walked on stage to polite applause. Nothing wild. Just enough. And I opened with this. 3 years ago, I pitched a product that got laughed out of the room. I was told founders didn't need another tool. They needed therapy, which was fair, honestly. But I didn't build Nerve to make founders feel good. I built it so they could act before they broke. The audience got quiet. That good kind of quiet. The kind where every neck tilts forward half an inch. I walked them through our journey. The early crashes, the billing bugs, the 3,000 revenue glitch, the accidental raccoon mascot. Each failure landed like a punchline, each pivot like a plot twist. And then I dropped the stat. In the last 6 months, over 12% of our new users came directly from companies who previously used our inspiration platform. People murmured. They knew exactly what I meant. No names, just facts, and a wink. Then came the real mic drop. I pulled up the demo of Nerve OS 3.0. Our new execution layer that didn't just make suggestions, it made decisions. Imagine this. A founder logs in. Revenue dips in product line B. Nerve automatically cross-references email performance, ad budget, and churn data. It suggests pausing one ad set, re-engaging inactive users, and ordering a short inventory restock. Then it asks for 1 click to execute all 3. Done. The whole room leaned in. Founders were nodding, VCs were scribbling, and I swear one guy mouthed "holy sh" without finishing it. I ended with this. Tools should think with you, not just for you. Nerve doesn't replace founders. It makes them faster, clearer, deadlier. And if we've learned anything, it's that revenge isn't loud. It's efficient. I walked off to a standing ovation. It wasn't loud, but it was unanimous. Outside the hall, I got mobbed. Founders wanted early access. Investors wanted to circle back. A guy from Stripe asked if we'd consider a partnership. But the best part, Brett was there. He was standing in the back, arms folded, pretending to scroll on his phone like he wasn't witnessing his biggest mistake deliver the talk of the year. I made eye contact, nodded. He looked away first. That's the thing about public wins. You don't have to say a word. The silence is the speech. Back at the Airbnb, Mira handed me a beer and said, "That was disgusting. You should be ashamed." I laughed. "You cried during the demo." I was sweating through my tear ducts. Rhea chimed in from the couch. We officially broke post-pulse. That night, I added a new metric to the team dashboard. Mic drops per quarter, goal, do. Because revenge stories don't end with one twist. They evolve. They grow teeth. They take over stages once closed to them. And the people who once laughed, they sit in the back row watching, wondering, how did we miss this? Simple. You weren't listening when it was quiet. Now, it's loud, and it's ours. Growth is addictive. Not the graphs, those plateau eventually. Not even the money, though. Trust me, that part gets less awkward. It's the momentum. The constant sense of next. The feeling that if you pause for too long, you'll miss something seismic. After the summit, everything accelerated. Investors flooded our inbox, offering term sheets that were somehow both desperate and condescending. Recruiters tried to poach Mira. She printed the emails and taped them to her monitor as trophies. Users were coming in fast enough that Jonah, who had never once updated a ticket in our CRM, said, "So, do I need to learn how tags work now?" It was chaos. The good kind. But scaling isn't just hiring people and increasing bandwidth. It's discipline. We turned down 9 out of 10 funding offers, refused to bring on strategic advisors unless they could ship code, only hired people who had either built something that broke or stuck around to fix something that did. We went from a skeleton crew to 17 full-time employees in 4 months, but we onboarded like our culture depended on it, because it did. Everyone at Nerve knew the backstory, not just the pitch, the punches. They didn't just memorize the roadmap. They could recite the night Rhea accidentally nuked our staging environment while trying to rename a folder. We built rituals, Demo Fridays, where any one intern or exec could show what they shipped. Petty Hour, where we read bad VC advice out loud and drank LaCroix like it was wine. And the You Tried Award, given weekly to whoever screwed up loudest and owned it best. We weren't building a company. We were building a story people wanted to be part of. Which brings me to the billboard. I didn't plan it. One of our engineers, Troy ex-Air Force deadpan humor, casually mentioned over lunch. Wouldn't it be wild if we just bought a billboard right outside Pulse's office? Everyone laughed, until Mira said, wait, that's actually genius. Turns out for $12,800, you can rent a 48-foot digital billboard across the street from a glass-windowed tech building in Soma. We designed it in under an hour. White background, black letters. Just still using Pulse. That's brave. Nerve on the logo. Nowhere hell, just the message. It went up Monday at 8 a.m. By 8:37, someone from Pulse posted a picture of it on X, formerly Twitter. By 9:00, it was trending in the SaaS ecosystem. By noon, we had 700% more site traffic. By dinner, 5 of Pulse's current clients DM'd us. We didn't reply immediately, just auto-responded with, don't worry. We brought the receipts. The best part, Brett saw it. I know because he called me. Block number, straight to voicemail. All he said was, that was a cute move. I didn't call back, because cute is what they used to call me. Scaling isn't just size, it's presence. It's swagger without saying a word. It's showing them you didn't just survive. You built the thing they didn't believe could exist. And now it's staring through their office window with a smirk. That night, our team threw a spontaneous party in the shared workspace. Someone brought cake. Rhea coded an Easter egg in the app, where if you typed brave into the command box, it played a laughing emoji and said, you meant nerve, right? Jonah made margaritas, bad ones, but no one cared. Because we were no longer a secret. We were the punchline they didn't see coming. And while the billboard came down after a week, the echo stayed, not in the form of tweets or DMs, but in every single Slack message that said, we saw your story. Can we join? We didn't chase hype. We became magnetic and revenge. It tasted like citrus LaCroix and LED backlight. You'd think once you reject a $3, $2 million offer and put up a billboard mocking your competitor, they'd stop calling. Wrong. A few months after the billboard incident, I got another email. This one didn't come from Brett. It came from ArcLight's board chair. Subject line, private inquiry regarding strategic alignment. Translation, we want to buy you before you eat us alive. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I called Jonah and said, you know what this means? He was halfway through making pancakes. Yep, time to double the price and pretend you're considering it. I laughed. You're terrifying. No, I'm realistic. They want you because they can't beat you. So give them hope, then build faster. So I did. I responded to the email with a simple, happy to meet. Let's talk terms transparently. They booked a dinner in SF. Private room, dim lighting. Real silverware, the kind you can't break in half, even if you're nervous. It was me, Mira, and our lawyer, Jenna. Across from us sat 2 board members, one of their in-house attorneys, and Brett. Yes, Brett. He looked older, tighter. Not the smug guy I remembered, more like a nervous executive who realized the intern he ignored once now had veto power over his job security. They started with compliments. Sincere, maybe, but laced with fear. Talked about how they'd underestimated the rise of execution-first platforms and admired our relentless innovation and believed Nerve could scale even further with support. Support, voire ownership. Translation, let us in before we become obsolete. Then they slid the folder across the table. $19, $8 million, all cash. Clean acquisition. Keep the team. Fast track to enterprise distribution. It was tempting. Too tempting. Because this wasn't just a number anymore. It was validation with interest. Mira looked at me like we could walk away rich tonight. Jonah had already texted me, "Take it. Then build a better one." But I didn't say yes. I asked one question. What happens to your team if Nerve replaces Pulse internally? They blinked. Well, there would be some restructuring, of course. Translation, cuts. Probably Brett's team. Probably Brett. That's when I knew this wasn't an acquisition offer. It was a surrender. They wanted us to take the keys, assume the wheel, and spare them the crash. I looked at Mira. She didn't say a word, just the smallest nod. So I leaned forward and said, "You're not buying Nervium. You're begging it not to destroy you." Silence. I closed the folder. "We decline." Respectfully, but definitively. Brett shifted in his seat. "Ethan, let's not make this personal." I smiled. "You made it personal the day you called my pitch a toy. This is me letting you keep your dignity." We left the restaurant without dessert. Back at the Airbnb, I opened my laptop and pushed a blog post live. "We're not for sale. We're just getting started." It went viral within hours. Founders retweeted it with fire emojis. VCs quoted it with hell. Yeah, energy. Our inbound inquiries tripled. Pulse. They announced a leadership restructure 2 weeks later. Brett's name quietly vanished from the About page. I didn't gloat much, just messaged Mira. Cleaned house without lifting a mop. The truth, that meeting wasn't about money or strategy or even ego. It was about a full circle moment watching the people who once laughed sit across from you with a pen in hand and fear in their eyes. Not because you demanded power, but because you earned it. The kind they can't buy. The kind that scares them more than failure. Irrelevance. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like an underdog. I felt like a mirror. One they couldn't look into without seeing their biggest mistake. Some hires fill a gap, others build a bridge. But once in a while, someone walks in and shifts the whole gravity of your company. That was Nina Vaughn, ex-Facebook, ex-Airtable, a product strategist with the kind of calm presence that made chaotic teams feel like jazz bands. She didn't speak to impress. She asked questions that cracked things wide open. We met at a panel I almost skipped. The topic was retention metrics beyond the dashboard. I went for the snacks. I stayed because Nina raised her hand and said, "If your retention strategy depends on feature notifications, you don't have a product. You have a guilt trip." I laughed so loud the whole room turned. After the panel, I introduced myself. She said, "I know who you are. Nerve's OS 3 rollout was the first time I've seen execution logic actually respect user intent." That's rare. We got coffee the next morning. I pitched her on joining. She said no, said she wasn't looking. But 2 weeks later, she emailed me. "I've been thinking about that conversation. Let's talk for real." She wasn't cheap. She wasn't fast. She didn't say yes to everything. But hiring Nina changed how we made every decision. She rebuilt our onboarding flow from scratch. Told us, "You're still treating new users like they're trying out a gadget. They're betting on a co-pilot." She coined our new mantra. Less friction, more foresight. And it worked. Trial to paid conversions jumped 34%. Support tickets about confusion dropped by half. Users started tweeting things like, "Nerve feels like it knows what I need before I do." Exactly. But Nina's impact wasn't just product. It was internal clarity. She made us write down everything we believed in. What we tolerated. What we didn't. What kind of company we'd walk away from no matter how much money was on the table. We created a culture doc that didn't read like PR fluff. It had lines like, "We don't hire unicorns. We hire people who ask why unicorns are even necessary." No ego-driven architecture. Build it like you expect someone smarter than you to edit it later. Kind doesn't mean soft. Clarity is kindness. The team responded like wildfire. Our retention not users, but team locked in. Nobody left. People started referring their smartest friends. We didn't have to chase resumes anymore. We magnetized talent. It was Mira who said it out loud first. "Ethan, we're no longer scrappy. We're serious." And I felt it, not in our numbers, but in our energy. We no longer ran like we were being chased. We ran like we belonged at the front. And Nina, she didn't want a spotlight. She wanted impact, which is why 6 months later she came into our Monday stand-up and casually said, "So, I think it's time we expand internationally. Cue stunned silence. Why? Mira asked. Because the problems we're solving, they're not just Western. I've talked to founders in Nairobi, Mumbai, and Manila. They're hacking together their own system. They deserve better. I nodded. Then she added, also, Pulse is expanding to Singapore. I almost dropped my coffee. Of course they were. Of course Brett's ghost would come crawling across time zones, trying to get ahead. But Nina had a plan, not aggressive, not flashy. Surgical. We launched a silent pilot in Southeast Asia. Localized Nerve OS, partnered with micro accelerators in scrappy dev shops. Let the value speak first. No billboards this time, and it exploded. Word of mouth took over. By Q3, 19% of our revenue came from outside the U.S. Pulse tried to follow again, but they didn't have Nina. They didn't listen. And that's what she taught us better than anyone else. Listening is a growth strategy. You can fake scale. You can fake PR. But you can't fake alignment. And Nina, she aligned us with a future so much bigger than the revenge we started with. Because this was no longer about proving Brett wrong. It was about proving our users right. The ones who took a chance, stuck around through the crash, believed in the pivot, told their friends, built habits, sent us that first $19.99 and said, let's see what you do with it. We didn't just scale, we earned it. And hiring Nina wasn't just a move, it was the moment we became undeniable. There's something eerie about being invited to the same stage where you were once dismissed. The Founders and Funders Gala was that stage. 3 years ago, I sat in the back, badge flipped over so nobody would ask what I did. This time, I was a panelist. Topic, grit, growth, and going global. Panelists. A unicorn CTO, a grizzled Series C operator, a founder who pivoted from crypto to climate. And me, the guy who used to beg for coffee meetings. What I didn't know until I walked into the green room was that Brett Langley would also be on the panel. Apparently he'd landed at a new AI automation startup. Same smirk, same handshake. Different company polo. We exchanged awkward nods. Mira texted. I heard, no mercy. I replied, no need. He'll do it himself. We went on stage. Each panelist answered a fluffy opener about founder challenges. When it was my turn, I said, startups don't fail because of bad ideas. They fail because someone in the room thinks they're the smartest and stops listening. A few chuckles, a few knowing nods. I didn't look at Brett. Didn't need to. Then came the moderator's question. What's the biggest mistake founders make when scaling? Brett jumped in. Honestly, they get too emotionally attached. They forget that it's business, not personal. He said it looking right at me. I smiled, waited, then answered. That's funny. I've found that the best companies are deeply personal. Because if it doesn't mean anything, why would anyone stay when it gets hard? A murmur through the crowd. The moderator, sensing heat, shifted gears. Ethan, your company's growth has been called meteoric. How did you avoid the common traps? I kept it simple. We stopped pretending speed was strategy. We built slow, then pressed fast forward when the foundation held. The rest of the panel was a blur. Polite, predictable. But backstage, Brett approached me. Look, I know we've had history. Understatement of the century. But I've watched Nerve, and I have to admit, you built something incredible. I nodded. Thanks. He paused. Then, like it physically hurt him, added, I was wrong. There it was. Not shouted. Not on Twitter. Not at the table when it might have helped me. But now, when it didn't matter anymore. Because I didn't need his apology. I was his consequence. Back at our table, Mira handed me a flute of champagne and said, how'd it feel? I shrugged. Like watching an old VHS of someone who used to scare you. The image is fuzzy. The fear's gone. Later that night, someone from the gala posted a clip of my quote on LinkedIn. We stopped pretending speed was strategy. We built slow, then pressed fast forward. When the foundation held, it blew up. Founders reposted it. Investors bookmarked it. A few people asked to print it on mugs. And Brett, he went viral for being in the shot. Visibly swallowing his pride, I didn't say a word. Because revenge doesn't always look like dominance. Sometimes it looks like quiet arrival. Like sitting at the same table as the people who said no. With your name on the headrest. Not because you forced it, but because you outlived their doubt. This wasn't a reunion. It was a reckoning. And the best part, We weren't even close to done. Every founder has one. The unsent email, the draft thread, well, the journal page that never leaves the Notes app. Mine was titled, "To Everyone Who Said No." I didn't plan on writing it. But after that panel, after Brett's apology, after the champagne, after seeing Mira asleep on the flight home with our culture doc in her lap, I pulled out my laptop and started typing. No intention to publish, just closure. I started with, "Hey, remember me?" Then the list poured out. The guy at Fundworks who laughed at my demo. The angel investor who ghosted me mid-due diligence. The recruiter who told Jonah your founder seems unstable. The accelerators who said, "We don't think this is a real market." I named no one, but I remembered everything. I remembered the way they'd tilt their heads when they didn't understand but wouldn't ask. How they'd look at Mira like she was the founder just because I stuttered under pressure. How they said no offense before giving advice that was offensive. And I wrote this line, "You didn't owe me belief, but you pretended to listen. That's what hurt." I paused, stared at the cursor, then added, "But thank you." Not sarcasm, real. Because the rejections gave me pattern recognition. The silence taught me how to talk to people who wanted to hear. The ridicule made me write code like it was a weapon and strategy like it was survival. I wrote, "You turned me into someone you'd eventually regret ignoring." Then closed the document. Didn't save it in Google Drive. Didn't Slack it to Mira. Just left it on my desktop like a tombstone and walked away because I didn't need to hit send. We were the send. That week, we shipped Nerve OS 3. Included tools for hiring ops, planning, and mental health integrations. Mira called it the Founder's Exosuit. Users started calling it Co-Founder in a Box. We onboarded 3,000 new companies in 19 days, and that letter stayed unopened. Until the day I gave a fireside chat at a university accelerator. One of the students' nervous notebook shaking asked, "How do you deal with being underestimated?" The room got quiet. I paused, then said, "You write the letter. Every founder has one. You put everything they said in it, and then you outgrow the need to send it." They nodded, but I could tell it still stung. So I added, "Being underestimated is fuel, but you don't run forever. At some point, you're not escaping the past. You're building something so good, it makes the past irrelevant." The student smiled. Mira, sitting off stage, gave me a look like that wasn't in the notes. Later, I opened the letter again, read every word. This time it didn't make me angry. It made me proud. Because that rage, that fire, I'd turned it into something that fed people. Into salaries, into second chances, into startup dreams they were still too scared to bet on. I didn't delete it, didn't edit it, just changed the title. Proof, then closed the laptop. Sometimes the best revenge is healing so well, you don't need it anymore. She was 22, a second-gen Vietnamese-American grad who looked like she hadn't slept in 3 days and didn't care. Her blazer was wrinkled shoes, scuffed voice, quiet but exact. And when she walked into our accelerator pitch week, she didn't ask for money. She asked for 5 minutes. No deck, no branding, just a battered Chromebook and a Google Doc with 47 tabs open. Her idea, a voice tool that detected anxiety in real-time customer support calls and suggested empathetic responses based on vocal tone, not just sentiment analysis. Emotional calibration. Half the judges glazed over. I leaned in because I remembered exactly what that felt like. When your voice shakes but your logic is unbreakable. When people ignore the storm behind your eyes and only hear the stammer. She didn't flinch when interrupted. Didn't crumble when someone said, "I think Intercom already has this." She smiled, replied, "They don't detect trauma signal. They optimize for deflection, not care." I nearly stood up and clapped. After her time ended, she packed up quickly, clearly used to being dismissed. But before she left, I walked up. "You built this already?" She nodded. "MVP runs locally. It's rough. Want a mentor?" She hesitated. Then, "Honestly, I want someone who won't ask me to pitch this like a SaaS tool." "It's not," I smiled, because I understood. "Then don't pitch it like one. Pitch it like a lifeline." She looked at me for a second. Really looked. Then said, "Are you Ethan from Nerve?" I nodded. She laughed. "I literally quoted you in my founder group chat last week." "Which quote?" "The one about speed not being strategy." "Fair. I stole it from a mistake I made." I'm hoping to steal fewer. We got coffee the next day, and I saw it. The spark, the grit, the refusal to soften her edges just to be liked. She wasn't trying to be the next me. She was trying to build something only she could. I gave her a small angel check, then a spot in our next boot camp, then weekly check-ins that turned into voice notes and midnight code reviews. Watching her pitch a year later at her own demo day was the closest I've come to crying in public without regret. She nailed it. Raised pre-seed, landed a pilot with a crisis hotline, built a team of 3, but more than that, she believed in her right to be in the room. And when a judge at her final pitch said, "I don't see the market for this," she answered, "Then you haven't been on the other end of a panic attack with a chatbot asking if you'd like to rate your experience." Dead silence, then thunder. Later that night, she texted, "Was that too much?" I replied, "It was perfect." And it hit me. This was the loop closing, not in revenge, but in legacy, not in proving someone wrong, but in helping someone never have to. People talk about exits, IPOs, press hits, but this, helping someone walk in unapologetic and whole, that's the real return. And in her voice, I heard mine, not the scared kid in the stairwell, but the one who survived him. There's a point in every story of revenge where rage burns off and something deeper remains. This wasn't just about proving them wrong anymore, not about mocking the skeptics or flipping off the closed doors or even making Brett Langley flinch when I took the mic. It became something else, something slower, quieter, stronger. It became about choosing how I wanted to build, who I wanted beside me, what kind of table I'd make room at, and what kind of founder I'd become after the fire stopped being fuel and started becoming light. They mocked my startup dream, dismissed it like a phase, laughed like it was harmless. But dreams built in silence grow roots they'll never see. And when they rise, they don't ask permission. They simply take up space. In the end, I didn't crush them with success. I outgrew the battlefield. And when the next founder showed up exhausted, brave, and trembling, I didn't give her my revenge. I gave her my belief. Because that's the sweetest ending of all, not destroying the ones who doubted you, but becoming the kind of person who sees the next you coming and doesn't look away. So if you're still listening, still doubting, still clinging to some version of yourself the world hasn't welcomed yet, this story was for you, because no one believes you until they do, and by then, you won't need them to. Just keep building, and when it's quiet, that's not failure. That's the sound of something powerful, taking shape.